In this video, our SAP Analytics Cloud product experts will demonstrate the main features of our new release. Feel free to jump straight to the features you're interested in by using the timestamps in the description below. Let's dive in and hear from our SAP Analytics Cloud product experts.
Joule, SAP's AI chatbot, revolutionizes how users interact with SAP applications like SAP SuccessFactors, SAP Start, or SAP S/4HANA. Beyond transactions, tasks, and general information like incentives for salespeople, Joule now provides NLQ capabilities, and for this, it leverages SAP Analytics Cloud Just Ask. From any SAP application, Joule users can now ask questions such as, what is the amount of sales commission this month? It adds to Just Ask NLQ conversational features that enable to disambiguate the user's questions, for example, when different data models could provide a relevant answer. Joule also let the users refine their questions, for instance, to compare with last month. Joule retains the history of the conversation so that users can follow their thought process while leveraging the reasoning provided by Just Ask, for instance, to convert local currencies to euros. To ask for a breakdown for the top 10 sales agents. And iterate from the previous answer to limit the focus on Italy. Joule user can start a new conversation at any time. For instance, to check the average units sold by sales order, or to get sales agent with over 1K of units sold last year. With this, Joule explains the generate query that includes here a value-based filter. Smart Insights feature aims at explaining a data point or a variance with top contributors. It is most popular with content consumers to explain a variance. For instance, why is forecast below budget, or why are sales this quarter higher than last year? This release introduces the availability of Smart Insight in optimized stories. It supports SAP Analytics Cloud acquired data models and SAP DataSphere models and live SAP HANA models. This is an initial release. Additional features are planned for the second half of this year, in particular the addition of generated chart footers narratives, getting insights from tables, and using the lightweight viewer. Let's have a look at this release. From an optimized story that displays sales KPI, we see that sales promotions are 4.35% above plan. Let's see what Smart Insight can tell us about it. From a right click, we run Smart Insights. We understand that despite decreasing by over 2 million in Q2, we're still above plan. Let's see then how Smart Insight can explain the sales promotion variance to the plan. The subscription product has a huge impact that is partly compensated by the pay-as-you-go products. The business technology platform products and the contract level also explains the variance. Smart Insights can also explain data point in charts, for instance here to explain the growth in operating expenses in May compared to April. The growth is driven by the business applications products, a pay-as-you-go product type, and long sales cycles of 18 months up to 2 years. Let's see now how we can get smart insights from SAP DataSphere data models. For this, we create a new optimized story. We create a new chart. We select a SAP DataSphere Analytical model. This is actually the same as the one we've been using earlier. It's about direct sales. We create a numeric point to display the sales promotion. And exactly as we did earlier, we right-click on the figure to get smart insights. We see that customers like Inter Hotels and Towers got the best promotion. We also see that the top 10 customers got 1.6 million, 8% of the total. Looks like promotions are spread across many customers. On the other hand, 1-year payment terms and C-level contracts get the bulk of sales promotions. As we are in edit mode, we can add the chart to the story. And in turn, run Smart Insights again, for instance, to find the top contributors and explain the sales promotions for analytics products. Again, customers, payment terms, contract levels explain sales promotions, but it's also explained by different dimensions, customer status, and sector that are more relevant in the context of analytics.
Hello, my name is Bettina Denonville. I am Product Manager for Data Analyzer and will present you the new innovations as part of the QRC Q2 release. A major improvement for the integration scenario of Story and Analyzer is the new Save and Pin feature in Data Analyzer. With that, you as a story viewer have the option to save and at the same time pin the insight to that widget you have opened the Data Analyzer. Pinned insights are automatically listed under the Story context menu, Open Data Analyzer, sorted in ascending order from newest to oldest. You have the ability to save and pin multiple insights to the same story visualization. Linked insights are basically persisted on private user level. That means your pinned insights are not visible for any other story viewer. There is no need to create a story bookmark in order to persist the pinned insights. A second improvement in the area of the integration of Story and Analyzer is the support of linked dimensions in Data Analyzer. With that, filters on Story widget dependent on another model using linked dimensions are now be passed when opening the Data Analyzer from a story chart or table. Now I'm going to jump to the live demo. I'm a content viewer and I just opened this story in story view mode. The story designer has enabled Data Analyzer so I can open it directly from here in order to do my data exploration. Let's say I'm interested in more details about Canada. So I do my slice and dice analysis. I also want to see more KPIs. And when I'm done with my exploration view, I want to save and pin it to my story. In the Save dialog, you find that feature here, Save and Pin to Story, right beside the Save button. I just give it a name. And Save and Pin. I do the same for Germany. So I quickly change the filter. And with that, I have my detailed exploration view about Germany. So I do the same and save it as a new insight. And save and pin it to the same story widget. With the exit button, I'm directly back in my story and in the context menu you find automatically these pinned insights. By clicking on the name, you open it in overlay mode, and with that icon here you can open it in a new tab. You can delete the insights directly from the context menu here. This deletes permanently the insight, so there is no need to go to the file repo in order to do the housekeeping. The same functionality is available if you open Analyzer using the Script API. So as you can see, if I open the Save dialog, you also find the Save and Pin button here available. And this insight is again pinned to the widget. Now I want to show you the link dimension support. For that, I switch here to another page where the link dimension is defined on dimension country. So filtering this widget filters automatically these two widgets. And now if I open Analyzer from here, which has been indirectly filtered, you see that the filter on country, Canada and France, is now brought over. That's it from my side for today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hello everyone, so in this video we'll illustrate the end-to-end workflow of moving the currency rates table to the file repository. So we'll start by looking at the My Files area. In the drop-down we now have a new currency conversion option. We can select this, it'll open the Conversions tab of the modeler, and now we can actually create a currency conversion table. So I'm going to enter some values. And I'm going to save the table. So in the past, we were never offered how to or where users can save the table to, but now with the file repository option, we can save it to a specific location. So in recent files, we can see the newly created table. We can import values into this newly created table. In this case, I'm just going to import from an Excel file. So we can create our mappings. Once our mappings are defined, and finish, and we can run our import. You can see the values are populated now in the newly created table. So now if we go to the modeler area, and we can use this currency rates table in a model. We go to the model preferences section, choose conversion, and I'm just going to choose the newly created table, and we can see the directory structure. I'm just going to save the model. And now we can use as an example, I'm going to create a new currency conversion measure. So in this scenario, we have a measure called measure B, and it's using a fixed currency of US dollars. So I'm going to create a conversion measure. And we'll convert to GBP. Choose measure B, and we want to choose fixed and GBP. Okay, so in this scenario, we can see that we have missing rates from the newly created rates table. So we'll save the model, and now we'll be redirected to the rates table to populate the missing rates. You can see here that our missing rate is offered, so we can choose to add to the table, choose a value, and we can see the conversion has taken place there. Let's go and create a story and ensure that we can actually consume this in stories. Drag over a table. And we'll add our measure, newly created measure. You see the value here. And we can see we can actually change the value for planning if that's required. So just going back to the My Files area. The newly created table can be found here. We have options here where we can actually move, we can edit, we can delete if we want, we can copy. There should be checks in place if we delete and it's already in use. Or we can't because this is already in use. So that's it for the demo for moving the currency rates table to the file repository. Thanks a lot for watching. Hello everyone, so in this video we demonstrate how the move of currency rate tables to the file repository is handled when an SAC modeler or planner uses a DataSphere workspace. So we'll start by navigating to the My Files area, and in the drop down we can see the currency conversion option, which brings us to the conversion tab of the modeler. So we can choose a add currency conversion table. And in this scenario, we're going to choose an SAP DataSphere workspace. So now I'm just going to add a sample rate. And we're going to save the table. So when I go back to the conversion tab, I'll see the newly created currency conversion table is listed in the recent files area, and we can see the data storage location for DataSphere. So now I can actually import rates into this currency rates table that's located in DataSphere. So we can create our mappings. And once mappings have been mapped correctly, we can run the import. So now I'll open the table and we can see the rates have been populated in the DataSphere workspace. So I can navigate back to the My Files area. I can see the currency rate table, and I have the option then if I want to move, or I can copy. And I can also rename. So that's it for the demo. Thanks a lot for watching.
Hello everyone, so today I'd like to give a demonstration on user-managed unit conversion within SAC. So in this demo, I'll start by illustrating how users can create, edit and delete unit and unit groups within the standard unit table. Next, I'll demonstrate the unit description table and how values here are inherited into the standard unit table. I'll move over to the model and illustrate how we can introduce these custom units by creating a measure and conversion measure using fixed units and units from a dimension. And then finally, we'll see how these are consumed in a story. So let's start with the standard unit table. So from the conversions tab, we click on the standard unit table to open the table. And you can see here we have our unit ID, symbol, description, group, base unit, numerator, denominator, offset and exponent fields. And we have a new toolbar here where we can add, delete, save our units and carry out undo and redo activities. So we'll start by creating a new unit in the unit table. So in this scenario, we're actually going to create a new group, and we do this by start by creating a new unit and creating a new group in the group column. So let's start with a new unit called EA2, which represents each. The symbol and description columns are read-only. They're going to be inherited from the unit description table. So in the group column, I'm just going to give it a new unit group called ARC, and you'll see here it illustrates the new unit group. When it's a new unit group, we'll get the EA2 becomes automatically the base unit for that group. So you'll see the tick box here, numerator, denominator are automatically populated. So now I'll go and create another unit and add it to the same group. This time I'm going to call it C06, which represents case of 6, and we'll choose the same unit group. And in this situation, we'll give it some values. So in this scenario, we'll give it a value of 6 for numerator and 1 for denominator, and 0 and 0 for the offsetting exponent. I can copy these cells. So let's do a Control C, and in this scenario I'll give it a case of 12, change the value to 12, and this one I'll call it CRT for crate, and we'll give it a value of 4. And we can see here that this unit already exists, so we have to make sure that this is a unique unit. So I might just call it CR2. And then here, finally, I just duplicate that. And in this scenario, I'll call it PL2, which represents palette, and we'll give it a value of 40. So I'm going to save the new units and unit group. We'll see the toast message to say that this is saved. So I'm just going to sort on the new unit group, and we can see the units that are saved here. So now what I want to do is go over to the standard unit, or so the unit description table, to see how the symbol and description values can be populated here. So I'm going to add in our units that we already created in the previous example. So I'll call it EA2. These are automatically populated, but I can actually represent, I can change those up to 6 characters for symbol. And I'm just going to call it which represents in English, and I'll just type this. And we're going to give it the language column here in the drop down menu. It will default to English, but I can choose other languages. In this scenario, we'll just leave it as English for now, but I could probably duplicate that and for illustration purposes change this to French. So then I'll have a case of 6. Case 6 EN. Case of 6 EN. Duplicate that. You see here I've gone over the 6 characters here, so I'm just going to change the symbol here. And finally one more, which was PL2, and we call it PL2 EN EN. And call this FR. Okay, so now we've populated, well, we have created the same units in the unit description table, and we've given it a 6 character, up to 6 characters symbol ID and a description then for each unit, and we've chosen a language for each one. So I'm just going to save the table now. Okay, and what I can do is we go now back to the standard unit table, and if I sort by the ARC group again, we can see the entries there for case, each, and palette that I had actually created. So for illustration purposes, we can actually see that they are only English, and that's because my user profile is in English. If I switch over to another user profile here, my language setting here is in French, and I just open the unit table here, and I can actually sort by the ARC group, and we see the French entries here. Okay. So now we have our entries. I'm going to go to a model. Back over to the Modelers tab, and let's go and open this model. So here we have a model. I just want to check the unit conversion settings. So unit conversion is enabled by default on this model. If I want to have unit translation enabled on this model, I leave the toggle on. If I do not want unit translation on this model, which will actually change or translate the unit symbols to a preferred setting, I can disable that. So we leave that on for now, and we'll just have a look at these custom measures that have been pre-created. But what I'm going to do is configure them now to the units that I have created. So in this scenario, I have a custom measure, which is a fixed unit, and I'm actually going to change it to the unit that I've actually just created, which was EA2. You can see there the unit symbol is listed here. And we have a second custom unit here, and it's using a dimension. So what we'll do is we'll go over to a dimension and we'll create another custom unit property on this location dimension. So I will call this one the ARC unit, and we'll change it to type unit. Okay, and create. So in here, I will default this value to the EA2. And for Germany, maybe we'll change it to C06. And for Ireland, C12. For UK, maybe we'll use the carton value, which is 02, and the USA we'll use palette. Just going to save those values. Okay, I've saved the values. So now on the second measure, what I'll do is configure this from a dimension. So we have our custom unit here of type unit. We choose the from dimension, and we choose the arc unit property for illustrations here, which will default to the EA2 value first of all. So next of all, we go to the conversion measure, or the calculation workspace. We can create a conversion measure. So I will click on the plus button, add a unit conversion measure, and I'll call this arc unit 1. So the source measure is our custom measure, which is fixed, and we can change this to another unit that was in the same group. So maybe we'll change it to the C12 option here. We can see the values have been converted there. Let's create another unit conversion. This time we'll use the custom measure, which is using the from dimension, and we will choose L2. Okay, so this is not liking this because the value that I've chosen on the source measure, let's just check. The custom measure from dimension is ARC unit. Let's just save the model. Okay, so this one here, we can see the conversion now is illustrated. Okay, so now what we can do is consume these customized units in a story. So let's switch over to a story. We'll drag a table onto the dashboard, and we'll choose our model. So we're going to add our location dimension for starters, and the measures. I'm going to add the new units that are here, so the ARC unit 1 and unit 2. And maybe we'll use the source measures as well, just for illustration. So these are our custom units that have been converted, and we can actually go and update these values. So you can see that the cells are enabled for planning purposes. So that's it for user managed unit conversion. So thanks a lot for watching. Hello everyone, in this video I'd like to illustrate how changes to the custom unit and unit description tables are replicated across DataSphere workspaces. So firstly, I want to illustrate that I'm logged on as a particular user. So here's the account that I'm logged in at the moment. I want to go to the standard unit conversion table, and I've pre-created a group called UNI. And I want to add a new unit to this unit group. So I will add a new unit, I call it UNZ, for example. And I'll just add it to the unit group. And we will give it a value just for illustration purposes here. And I'm going to save that. And you can see here a toast message to say that the models are being updated across DataSphere. We'll be notified. So, and now the toast message says all changes to the standard unit table have been replicated. So we can actually go to notifications here to see the information message. All the latest changes to the standard conversion table have been applied to models and deployed to SAP DataSphere successfully. So what I'm going to do next is open the unit description table, and I'm going to add a description to this. for this unit. So we called it UNZ, and I'll call it UN it Z, and just give it a more meaningful description. Custom unit Z. I'm going to say it's in English, and we'll save those changes. So you get, again, we can see the changes are replicated across the workspaces. So next of all, what I want to do is go to a model, and we'll open this model. And we can see here the workspace that this user is assigned to. For this model, it's using the FPA145 workspace. So I can just, for example, look at this custom measure, which is using units from the same unit group called UNI. So what I'm going to do is add the new unit called Unit Z. If I can find it here, Unit Z is here, and you can see the description that's been saved along that with that. Okay, and I might actually just go over to the calculation workspace, and we can see the custom unit Z is there. So the changes are applied here. We're converting from unit Z to unit 8. So I can save the model. So now what I want to do is just illustrate that a different user. So in this example, I'm logged in as a different user. Just illustrate this here. So a different account, and I am going to go into a model that is on a different workspace. And we can see here that the workspace, instead of FPA145, this is called John's space. And we have a model very similar to the previous model, where it's using unit 6. So what I'm going to do is change it now to the one that's just been recently added. And you can see there it's listed. So that just illustrates that it is replicated across different workspaces. So we can see here the conversion here from that new unit, unit Z, to unit 9, and I can save the details there. So that's it for the demo. Thanks a lot for watching.
Hi, this is Jenny. Today I'll be showing you 2 new usability enhancements for Compass. The first enhancement will be the ability to launch Compass in a new browser tab. You can right-click on a data cell in the dashboard, go to the context menu, and choose to create a new Compass simulation from a new tab. Now it's much easier to navigate between a dashboard and a Compass simulation. The second enhancement is about the highlighting of drivers for which it is not possible to enter a range of uncertainty for a simulation. The highlights will include the reason behind to give an understanding and a good overview of drivers which you might like to remove from the list. Let's have a look. Here you can see some examples of unsupported drivers, such as those with restricted drivers, or having 0 or unbooked values, or mixed currencies and units. Temporarily deactivated drivers are also one of those. You can easily tidy up the driver list by removing all unsupported drivers at one go. You will see that the activated drivers are not impacted, and you can easily activate them again. That's all for this quarter. See you in the next one.
Hi, my name is Scott Godfrey, and I'm one of the product managers with SAP Analytics Cloud, and I'm going to spend the next few moments talking to you about some of the new features we have coming in the planning area as part of our Q2 2025 QRC release. And we're going to start with an enhancement to multi-actions. In this release, we've introduced a dedicated step type in the multi-action to call a PaPM process. So previously, you could do this using an API. Of course, the API step rather. Of course, if you did that, you didn't get some of the context. You'd have to know exactly what the parameters and so forth were you were going to pass. But this is, of course, simplified with the introduction of this PaPM step. So now when you deploy a given PaPM step in the multi-action, you can choose from the specific connections you may have to PaPM systems. You can either call an existing process or you can create sort of a new execution. Of course, if you create a new execution, you'll be prompted for some other parameters that you need to include. And then based on the selected activity, the relevant parameters for that PaPM activity will be available. You can, of course, create a parameter to pass through, or you could select a fixed member. So this should make calling PaPM processes much more straightforward from SAP Analytics Cloud. So with that, let's jump over and see this in action. So if I just right-click, you'll see I now have a new PaPM integration step. When I add that, I'm prompted to give it a step name. I have to select a specific PaPM connection. I then have the ability to select from an existing process or create a new execution. In my case, I'm going to create a new execution. I'm going to get to the activity I want specifically by selecting the environment, the specific template, process template, and then the activity. And when I select those parameters, then I get a list of the specific parameters available for that activity. I can then define either by selecting a member or selecting a variable what I want to pass through to that execution. So in my case, the variables are amount, customer, of course I got a date. I'll save my multi-action. We'll flip over to a story. We've got our trigger for the multi-action. And when I execute the multi-action, I'm now prompted for my dynamic parameter for the date. And so now it makes the call to PaPM. And then we can quickly jump over to PaPM and we can see the process we instantiated. And so this is our PaPM step in multi-actions with our Q2 2025 QRC release. The next enhancement I want to talk about is new parameter types that we've introduced to our multi-action. So now you can define a parameter as type string or type datetime. And this is useful in consumption with the API steps. So up until this point, if you were using an API step, you were making that call to an external system, you were limited in what you could pass dynamically via the API body, and typically had to do that by referencing a parameter whose selection was based on a dimension element. So now you can specify the string or datetime specifically as a parameter. You can set it to be dynamic or fixed, and then you can reference that parameter of either the string or date type in the body of the API step. And so this is much more flexible. So with that, let's jump over and see this in action. So in this example, we're going to be calling an IBP process. We already have a parameter that we've defined as of string type. We're going to create a new one that is going to be a datetime parameter. So this will be our process start date. We'll give it a description. It's going to be a dynamic input. And then we make the substitution for our parameter in the body of the API step. If we now save that and navigate over to our story, we'll execute our demand forecast in IBP. You'll see that we get a string parameter for our template ID. We can now choose our start date using that new parameter variable for datetime. And this will then pass through to the IBP process. We'll just jump over, see our application logs in IBP. And we'll see that we have created an instance for this process that we want to have executed on the IBP side. We can just check the manage process. We refresh this, we'll see that we have this process open, waiting to be executed. So this is our new string and date type parameters for multi-actions with our Q2 release. Also, as part of our Q2 2025 QRC release, we've improved visibility into where multi-actions are consumed. So this is a capability we have currently with data actions. We've had that for some time, where you can show which objects are consuming the data action, and now we've extended that to multi-actions. So if you have a multi-action that's consumed in one or multiple stories, or in, let's say, legacy analytical applications, or in calendar tasks, right? You can now, within the multi-action settings dialog, see the specific stories or calendar tasks with hyperlinks that are consuming that multi-action. So let's jump over and quickly see this in action. So I'm in my multi-action editor. If I were to pull up the settings dialog, you'll see now at the bottom of the setting dialog, I have this used in list that shows me the stories, and in this case, the calendar task where the multi-action is being consumed. What I'll do here is I'll flip over to my calendar and I'll create a new calendar entry by copying an existing calendar entry. So I'll take my current calendar entry that is consuming that multi-action. We'll make a copy of it into Q1 for next year. I'll just change my identifier for the calendar event. And then once I've activated that, I'll sort of flip back over to the multi-action editor again. If I then pull up the settings, we'll see that this new calendar entry is also reflected in the used in list. Okay, and of course I can link to any of these directly via the hyperlink. So this is the used in capability with multi-actions as part of our Q2 release. The next feature I'd like to discuss is some enhancements we've made to calendar notifications. So in Q2 of 2024, we introduced the capability for the administrator to define more granularly what calendar notifications users would receive and how they would receive those. And now we've extended that capability with the option for the end user themselves within their own profile to customize that further if that right is granted by the administrator. So in this case, the individual user within their own profile can define if they want to group notifications and when they want to receive them. They would define which notifications specifically they want to receive, what types of tasks, and given status for the tasks. And of course, they can also define whether they want that to be delivered via email and or in-app notifications. So with that, let's jump over and see this in action. So if I go into my profile settings and I were to edit the user preferences, I'll get a new option for calendar notification settings that I can choose. And we'll see in this case that it says that the settings have been defined by my administrator, so I'm not able to modify them in this instance. So with that, let me just enable user modification. So as the administrator, I go to administration, my notifications, and under the calendar notifications, I can check this box that says allow users to change the settings. So once I do that and then save the changes, under my own profile, I'll have the ability to then customize those notifications. So go back to the profile settings and again, edit the user preferences. And when I select the calendar notifications, you'll see I now have the ability to define whether I want to group my emails or the notifications. I can change the date or the time rather associated with the notifications. And of course, I can optionally deactivate some notifications that I don't need. I make those changes, and then I were to hit the OK button, then those notification settings would be preserved.
With the newest version management API enhancements, we made it possible to get the version information from the PlanningModel API. This API does work similar as the table.getPlanning API, with the difference that we now no longer need a table to receive a version. This can be achieved by the PlanningModel script object and enhances the scripting experience of a story designer. As you can see in the example, the API gives multiple options to work with versions. Not only receiving names or IDs, it is possible to start the edit mode of a version or to publish data changes. Furthermore, the new versions can be created with this as well, by copying existing ones, with or without data. In this example, we can see that the story designer is requesting the version name of the actual version and is prompting it to the console. After that, the designer is creating a new version via the copy functionality. The overall enhancement gives the developers more flexibility in working with versions. It enhances the performance in steps where multiple models are maintained in one story, or in cases where a table is now needed in the view time. This new version will be visible in the version management panel or could be added to a table in view time.
Hello, I'm Jeanne Brigonnet, a product manager with SAP Analytics Cloud. I would like to introduce you to a new feature in the Microsoft integration part and especially in Excel part. We have now in the designer panel a new tab to organize workbook information. Indeed, now at workbook level, you can retrieve the Preferences tab, where you have different options to set up, and a new Styling tab that we will discover a bit later. In this Preferences tab, you can already see the latest one named Performance Profiling. If you enable this Performance Profiling, you can then automatically add a new sheet in your workbook named Performance Profiling, as you can see on the screen, where you can retrieve all the detailed information about the traffic and all the performances information related to your report. This is really key, especially on communication with customer, for us, for support, for developers, when there are performance issues, because then we can understand when the performance issue comes from. It can be a memory issue, a back-end issue, or a front-end issue. Also, with this new panel, at the workbook level, we have introduced this Styling tab. In the Styling tab, currently, you can define a specific formatting by hierarchies. So the hierarchy, of course, are defined in SAP Analytics Cloud model or on the live model if you are using a live connection. And from here, you can retrieve the difference between rows and columns of your report and decide to apply to it a specific format based on the rule that you define in this Styling tab. Also, still regarding formatting, but this time at the table level, not anymore at the workbook level, we have this Styling tab, which was already introduced with the previous QRC. But in this Styling tab, we have added a new feature, the Keep Cell Height and Width, which allow to keep the format of the column and rows if you uncheck or check the option. Lastly, a very important capability that we offer, it's the capability now to integrate some standard Excel VBA code with our add-in specific command. For the first delivery, only the action listed here in this slide are supported. All information and details about this feature is in the SAP note that you can see here. That was the last feature I wanted to present. Thanks for watching.
Hello, this is the presentation for the feature Support Folder File Navigation within SAP Analytics Cloud add-in for Microsoft PowerPoint. Until now, within the PowerPoint add-in, you could only select SAC stories that were visible in the recent or in the favorites list. With this new feature, you can now, from your add-in, open the same folder structure as in your SAC tenant and select any story available in your folder structure. We are now in the PowerPoint add-in, and if we go and connect to our SAC tenant to select a story from the tenant, we can see here that we can choose a story from the recent stories list in SAC or from the favorites list of stories within SAC. Now you can from this Open from Folder button, open this new pop-up, which will allow you to navigate within all the folder tree available in SAC. So you can really now go wherever you want in the folders and select the stories, even if they are not in the favorites or in the recent stack. So I can search for a specific story containing best friend here. And if I select, for instance, this story, best friend finance, I can now add in my slides any widget coming from this story.
As part of Q4 QRC release, we had introduced preload and caching in present mode. This was aimed at improving the page switch experience and to make it snappier. We now support this for view and embed mode. This means if you are on page 1, when the page is loaded completely, the structure of the page 2 will be loaded in the background. Similarly, when you're on page 4, when the page 4 is loaded completely, the structure of page 3 and page 5 will be loaded in the background. This is an opt-in functionality, and depending on the objective of the story, whether it is for interaction purpose or viewing purpose, the designer can choose to have this functionality. Now let's look at the demo. So here I have my story, and under the load optimization setting, I can choose whether I want to have preload pages or not. So once I set it, I can switch to view mode. Here you can see that once my page 1 is loaded, or the first page has been loaded, as I switch to the next page, the structure has been loaded in the background, and it is just the components that are being loaded now, or the data related queries that are being fired. So this is basically aimed at improving the switching experience and to make it snappier. Welcome to the What's New video for Q2. With transition to optimized experience, there were certain geographic visualizations which were discontinued due to lack of adoption. One of those features was flow layer. However, based on customer feedback, there was a desire from customers for us to support the flow layer. So let's look at the demo that we have. The flow layer now supports universal model. Now, when we are hovering over a line, um, the active line is indicated by a semi-transparent blue halo effect. When there are overlapping lines, as compared to a classic story where only the tooltip for the last rendered line was displayed, here we show the tooltip for all the lines which are overlapping. When a line is clicked, it is indicated by a semi-transparent blue halo effect, and the visibility or the opacity of the lines in the same layer of other lines in the same layer are reduced by 80%. With flow layer now, we can adjust both range and scale instead of just scale as we have seen in classic stories. Any lines that fall outside of the range is indicated as an outlier. Flow layer also now supports additional tooltips on dimensions and measures like we have on bubble layer. The other feature which I would like to share with you is about the data label placement on line-based charts. We have improved our algorithm and tried to modify the way in which we position the data labels to show our customers the maximum data labels that we can show in an area. Now let's see a demo for this. So here I have a line chart, For the demo purpose, I have kept it on the full screen mode. What we can see here is for certain data labels where there is a collision or there can be chances of collision, the data label has been placed in a certain way so that the collision can be avoided and at the same time the data label can be shown. For example, here, these two data points, one for 861 and one for 319, there was a chance of collision. That's where the data label has been positioned in a certain way in which they can be shown together. Here the data label for 893 has been shown below the line, same as for 891. So this way we have tried to improve the positioning of the data labels for all line-based charts. That includes line chart, combination of line and bar chart, combination of line and stacked column chart.
Hello everyone, in this video I'd like to demonstrate one enhancement of Composite. Currently Composite, the conditional formatting is not supported. So now with this enhancement, users are able to add a measure-based threshold in the Composite. Okay, this is the example Composite that I created. There is a one chart inserted already in the canvas. And you can see that the data points actually is already rendered in a kind of threshold. So when the value is above average, like what you see in legend, that above average, the value will be marked in green. So I define the threshold based on this measure. I compared actually from this measure to calculation. So this calculation actually is calculate based on the average of the total value of this measure. So when the data point value is above the average, it will be shown in green. Now let's take a look at how the story can consume this composite. Okay, in this sample story, there is already two composites inserted, which comes from the same composite and that I demonstrated to you just now. So now I can do a model repointing on one of them to show another measure value. So I choose this measure and do the mapping. Okay, now the model pointing works successfully as expected, and also the new measure that I mapped just now actually applied the threshold, which is compared to a calculation. Okay, this is a demonstration of threshold support in Composite. So thanks for your attention. Hello everyone, in this video, I'd like to demonstrate one enhancement of Set Model API. Currently, when users change model using Set Model API, and the model happens to have a variable set, so when users use the Set Model API, the prompts will be pop up for users to set the variables. However, in some cases, user will set the variable value anyway by scripting API, so there's a requirement from customer that to suppress the prompt pop-up. So with this enhancement, we will enhance the current API to add one optional parameter in the existing API. So here's a sample story that I created to demonstrate this feature. Okay, I had a switcher here for users to switch it on-off to decide if to suppress the prompt dialog or not. So let's take a look at the scriptings. Okay, firstly, I will get the value of the switch to decide if to switch the prompt or not, and then set the new models with the optional parameter. And if users choose to suppress the prompt, then I will set the variables using this script API. Okay. Then let's take a look at the sample story in view time. User can switch on and off this toggle to decide whether to suppress the prompt dialog or not. So I just choose to suppress the prompt dialog, and then set the number variable, for example, to 120. And then I will click this button to set the best run Joule model using the set model API. Okay, you see that model is changed successfully without the prompt dialog. And then I will demonstrate to you if I choose to prompt a dialog. So I can switch off this toggle and set the model again. Okay, the prompt dialog appears, and then I can choose the value of this variable in the dialog and then set the variable value. So the chart is rendered correctly. So you can see that the new parameter works correctly. Okay, that's the demo. Thanks for your attention.
Sometimes your dashboard might look a little plain. In such case, adding icons can really enhance its appearance. Our new feature includes a built-in SAP icon library with over 700 icons, making it easy to enrich your dashboard visually. So here's one example. I have added a button, and I would like to add some icons to this button. So here, SAP icons have been a built-in icon form here. I can go to Export and copy the symbols from this icon export. I can paste these icons directly to the text. As other normal fonts, it can change the size and colors here. I can change the style of the icon, the button, to make it more visible. I can also use in the scripting. In this case, I would like to switch to another icon when it's clicked on this button. So I copy another icon symbols from the icon explorer and back to the scripting. And when I click on the button, going to switch the icons on this button. That's all. Thank you. Hi. Today I'm demonstrating an enhancement to our input control API. We now support now members and no value, removing the previous limitation noted in SAP Note for our customers. Let's see how it works. So first is the get active selected member API. In order to return the now member, we have introduced a new option called return now as alias. So by default is false. If the null members is needed, this option should be marked as true. Then the second API is to set the null value as alias or as the direct string. It can also be set as an object here. The first is get the active select member and then pick the first one, which is null value. So here's the runtime. I bring up the console to check the result. So now the get active select member return the null values as the special alias. So in comparison with the previous one, if the option is false, it does not return as an alias, but just an empty string. Now click the button set a null value. It changes input control and also affect the table. And it can also be set as the string or set as an object. Okay, this is the first one. And the second one is support the null value. So null value usually come from the properties. So this get API, and it'll set the member as empty string or null value. The first one's empty string, and the second one's null value. Also can set as an object. Now let's check the runtime. Also bring up the console to check the value here, to get the member, and go to return the null value here. And with the set API, to set the empty string and the null value, it's going to affect the input control and also the table. And also set as the object. Yeah, that's all. This is the API enhancement for input control. Thank you. Hi, I would like to introduce an enhancement to the input control API, be able to only return selected members without its descendants. So the current input control API returns all nodes in the hierarchy, including leaf and parent nodes. To meet the customer request, we will enhance the API to return only selected member without descendants. So right now, for instance, we could return just 4 top parent nodes instead of 1,000 nodes, improving the performance and usability. In order to do that, we have introduced a new option. It's called full hierarchy nodes. The default value is false and unselected to keep the current behavior for the better compatibility. To adopt a new behavior, that you can set the option as true to only return the parent nodes. So let me show you how it works. Now I have an input control. We had 4 nodes have been selected. I would like to open the console to see the output. So for the output, I have 2 outputs. First one is select the full hierarchy nodes because the option is set as a false. You can see that all the nodes in the hierarchy have been returned. And the second is set the option as true if you only turn the parent node. It is 4. Now for the testing, I deselect 2. Then there's 2 output. The first one is still return the full nodes is 9 members, and the second one have return 2 as the parent nodes. Then how about I select the parent node to deset RU to keep only the BT in this case, if we continue to return two members, the first one is parent node, another one is the PT, because for the PT, this node children belong to this node. So we're going to return the PT. So what further I can save my selection of this input control to a script variables, so that I would like to use the set API to set on another input control. So I call it set API. The input control will apply the selected value. So this is the new API enhancement for the input control. Thanks for watching. Hi, I would like to demonstrate the customer widget transportation feature. This feature has long been requested by our customers. So this is a customer widget. It's easy to zoom in and zoom out all the data points. I can go to the customer widget management panel to search for this customer widget. As you can see, the resource file is hosted by SAP. So we need to support the transportation of such customer widget. Then I go to the content network. Here I can select the customer widget and also select the storage that contained this customer widget. So go to next, I go to export the package and download it. Then I go to the target tenant. I would like to import the package I have just exported. So here on the content network, I can select the package and import the customer widget and the story. Now, also in the target tenants customer widget management panel, I can search and validate that this customer widget has been successfully imported. And also I could open the story that containing this customer widget. It can be successfully opened and visualize the customer widget. It means that everything works fine after the transportation. This is the end of the demo. Thank you. Hi, the viewport loading optimizes story loading performance. We will enhance the customer widget framework so that customer widgets can now also benefit from these improvements. Let's take a closer look at how it works. So I have choose the building optimized setting to viewport loading. And on this canvas, there are three charts. There are two building charts and a custom widget called the bar chart 3. And one chart is in the viewport, another two charts are outside of the viewport. Now let's take a look at the runtime. So the first chart is in the viewport, and then scroll down, there's two charts are running on the fly. I can also use the Performance Insight tool to check the sequence of the loading process. Now I can also open the Performance Insight tool. You can find that the two charts, the custom widget bar chart 3 and the building chart 2, are loading after initial viewport have been completed. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
As part of Q4 QRC release, we had introduced payload and caching in present mode. This was aimed at improving the page switch experience and to make it snappier. We now support this for view and embed mode. This means if you are on page 1, when the page is loaded completely, the structure of the page 2 will be loaded in the background. Similarly, when you're on page 4, when the page 4 is loaded completely, the structure of page 3 and page 5 will be loaded in the background. This is an opt-in functionality, and depending on the objective of the story, whether it is for interaction purpose or viewing purpose, the designer can choose to have this functionality. Now let's look at the demo. So here I have my story, and under the load optimization setting, I can choose whether I want to have preload pages or not. So once I set it, I can switch to view mode. Here you can see that once my page 1 is loaded, or the first page has been loaded, as I switch to the next page, the structure has been loaded in the background, and it is just the components that are being loaded now, or the data related queries that are being fired. So this is basically aimed at improving the switching experience and to make it snappier.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully our demos have helped you leverage the latest features in SAP Analytics Cloud in your organization. Remember to leave a like on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all things Analytics Cloud. We have a lot of exciting new features coming your way in 2025, so stay tuned and we'll see you next time.